We were saying that after Rabbi Shimon by Yochai passed away, the sages were not able to speak with a complete expression and explain everything. They were stammering. They were giving it pieces. Even still, they were very great and distinguished sages, and they knew the Kabbalah fully, the whole shebang, the whole system. However, they did not establish, set down a yeshiva, a school, or a city, an assembly, society, to make a great compilation like the Sefer of the Zohar, the Book of the Zohar, which included in it the supernal and the ones from below. They just stood for themselves, by themselves, without attaching themselves and joining with others. And the whole world came out missing this knowledge. Therefore, it says in the Psalms that it is not with us knowledge of anything. Because what is with us isn't considered knowledge at all. In other words, it didn't say, the Ramchal pointed out, it doesn't say Banu, that there's nothing in us. There's nothing in us. They had great people with them, but what they had with them, it just wasn't the real. It just wasn't the thing. It wasn't it. Even though they knew the whole Kabbalah, it wasn't it. And in truth, all of this stemmed from the light only being sealed off, and because in the days of the Rashbi it was opened after he was in the cave for 13 years. So all the gates of wisdom were opened for him to illuminate all of Israel until the end of days. And I'm going to explain to you more with the help of Hashem. Then the Ramchal goes on to explain some amazing things. But let's go back and recap that even though these great sages knew the whole Kabbalah on its system, but still it's considered that they didn't know it. Why? Because somehow it wasn't settled completely in their hearts. It's one point the Ramchal says. It wasn't seen clearly enough to be engraved in their hearts, pictured in their hearts, like Rabbi Shimon by Yochai. And they did not establish a yeshiva, a society of learning to compile it and to put it all together and disseminate it. And they all stood for themselves. Each one knew what they knew, but they couldn't join with others. And the Ramchal also made a correlation. He said that this was similar to the generations between Abraham and Nach, and this is really explained in the Rambam, in the Laws of Avodah Zarah, the first parak of the first chapter, the third paragraph, halacha of the Rambam. He explains how Avram Avinu went about bringing the whole world to the knowledge, to close to God, how he went proclaiming God, and also the Rabbi Nachman is explaining this in the life of Rabbi Nachman. And Avram Avinu went around destroying the idols and telling people about the truth. And the Ravid has a little note usually the Ravid is asking questions on the Rambam. He's disagreeing on a small percentage of the Rambam. He's disagreeing very vehemently on all of the halachas of the Rambam. And here it's not clear whether it's a very strange Ravid, because it doesn't appear like he's coming out against the Rambam. He's asking, he says, Tamani, I'm in wonder. This is very, I'm perplexed. What happened to Shem and Ever? How come they didn't protest against all that was going on then in those days? That the Rambam just explained so vividly how the crusade of Avram Avinu to destroy Avodah Zarah, idolatry, and to promote God. What happened to Shem and Ever? And he says maybe they did protest, but it just didn't come about that they came face to face with the idolatry, because people hid it from them. But from this, that's what he says. So from here we see the Ramchal's point that somehow the great knowledge of Shem ve'Ever that the forefathers were able to study. Yaakov Avinu studied 14 years by them, day and night. It says he didn't sleep. He studied 14 years consecutively. He was able to, he could have continued. So all this great knowledge that they had, it still was not sufficient. It did not, Judaism does not start with Shem and Ever. It starts with Father Abraham. Somehow Abraham brought the knowledge to life, to reality, to bring the world to God, whereas even by Shem and Ever, his teachers, which were great scholars, unimaginable, they were able to teach the forefathers for tens of years. Their knowledge just remained for themselves, and it wasn't working knowledge to bring the world to God. Many years ago I said that maybe a parable, you could have a great nuclear scientist that knows everything, and people don't even understand what he knows at all. But when it comes to fixing his car, it could be that he's just not adept, and he could bring it to Leroy, the mechanic that couldn't graduate even high school, and in a few minutes Leroy has it revving and going 100 miles an hour. Rabbi Shimon was that tzaddik that took the knowledge, what he knew was life. He knew the secrets of the Torah. For him, it was part of his heart already. Like the Ramchal says, it was pictured in his heart, and it became his life. Now, there's a big difference between Avram Avinu and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon in the Gemara says he was on a mission once to save the Jews, and he had to send messengers, and the Shindala, the demons were sent. They did his bequest, and he cried. He said, for even the servants of Avram Avinu, they were real angels, and I have to resort, the only people helping me here, the demons, I didn't merit. Avram Avinu went out into the streets to the heathens, and he injected them with the faith. He went head on. Rabbi Shimon Yochai was not like the previous ages that just had the knowledge. His was a living knowledge to bring to the whole world into the program, to have everything running on the Shekhinah, on the divine presence of Hashem. Everything was hooked up, but he had it much easier than Avram Avinu. He didn't have to go loggerheads with the whole world, with the heathens. He brought into the Zohar, into holiness. He hooked up all the souls of Israel with the truth. He had a head start from all the tzaddikim before him. But he was living that reality with the souls of Israel, with everybody. His knowledge was real live knowledge, connected to all the souls, and bringing the faith, the live faith, in real time, in the pulse beat of Israel, fixing their souls, uniting their souls, bringing the light of God into their hearts in real life. That the knowledge of his Torah was that live. It wasn't just theoretical or some sort of quasi knowledge. It was in actuality. That was Rabbi Shimon Yochai. Nach, MeUman.